personal. Your year changes when your life changes. By Derek Sivers. A new day begins when I wake up, not at midnight. Midnight means nothing to me. It's not a turning point. Nothing changes at that moment. A new year begins when there's a memorable change in my life, not January 1st. Nothing changes on January 1st. I can understand using moments like midnight and January 1st as coordinators, so cultures and computers can agree on how to reference time. But shouldn't our personal markers and celebrations happen at personally meaningful times? Your year really begins when you move to a new home, start school, quit a job, have a big breakup, have a baby, quit a bad habit, start a new project, or whatever else. Those are the real memorable turning points, where one day is very different than the day before. Those are the meaningful markers of time. Those are your real New Years. This isn't selfish. You know your friends and family well enough to acknowledge these special days for them too. The day that I want most to celebrate someone's life has nothing to do with the calendar day that they were born. The fourth Thursday in November is not when I feel most thankful. The 14th of February is not when I celebrate my romantic relationship. To force these celebrations on universal dates disconnects them from the meaning they're supposed to celebrate. It's thoughtless. Celebrate personally meaningful markers. Ignore arbitrary calendar dates. When did this year really begin for you? Time is personal. Your year changes when your life changes. By Derek Sivers. A new day begins when I wake up, not at midnight. Midnight means nothing to me. It's not a turning point. Nothing changes at that moment. A new year begins when there's a memorable change in my life, not January 1st. Nothing changes on January 1st. I can understand using moments like midnight and January 1st as coordinators, so cultures and computers can agree on how to reference time. But shouldn't our personal markers and celebrations happen at personally meaningful times? Your year really begins when you move to a new home, start school, quit a job, have a big breakup, have a baby, quit a bad habit, start a new project, or whatever else. Those are the real memorable turning points, where one day is very different than the day before. Those are the meaningful markers of time. Those are your real New Years. This isn't selfish. You know your friends and family well enough to acknowledge these special days for them too. The day that I want most to celebrate someone's life has nothing to do with the calendar day that they were born. The fourth Thursday in November is not when I feel most thankful. The 14th of February is not when I celebrate my romantic relationship. To force these celebrations on universal dates disconnects them from the meaning they're supposed to celebrate. It's thoughtless. Celebrate personally meaningful markers. Ignore arbitrary calendar dates. When did this year really begin for you?
Time is personal. Your year changes when your life changes. By Derek Sivers. A new day begins when I wake up, not at midnight. Midnight means nothing to me. It's not a turning point. Nothing changes at that moment. A new year begins when there's a more memorable change in my life, not January 1st. Nothing changes on January 1st. I can understand using moments like midnight and January 1st as coordinators, so cultures and computers can agree on how to reference time. But shouldn't our personal makers and celebrations happen at personally meaningful time? I can understand using moments like midnight and January 1st as coordinators, so cultures and computers can agree on how to reference time. But shouldn't our personal makers and celebrations happen at personal meaningful times? Your year early begins when you move to a new home, start school, quit a job, have a big break. New Year really begins when you move to a new home, start school, quit a job, have a big break up, have a baby, quit a bad habit, start a new project. Or whatever else. Those are the real, more memorable turning points, where one day is very different than the day before. Those are the meaningful makers of time. Those are your real New Years. This isn't selfish. You know your friends and family well enough to acknowledge these special days for them, too. The day that I most want to celebrate someone's life has nothing to do with the calendar day that they were born.
Time is personal. Your year
personal.
changes
Your
when your life changes.
When your life changes.
By Derek Sivers.
By Derek Sivers.
A new day begins when I wake up, not at midnight. Midnight means nothing to me.
Means nothing
it's
to
not
me.
a turning
It's
point.
not a turning point.
Nothing changes at that moment. A new year begins when there's a memorable change in my life, not January 1st. Nothing changes on January 1st.
At January 1st.
I can understand using moments like midnight and January 1st as coordinators, so cultures and computers can agree on how to reference time. But shouldn't our personal markers and celebrations happen at personally meaningful times? Your year really begins when you move to a new home, start school, quit a job, have a big breakup, have a baby, quit a bad habit, start a new project, or whatever else. Those are the real memorable turning points, where one day is very different than the day before. Those are the meaningful markers of time. Those are your real New Years. This isn't selfish. You know your friends and family well enough to acknowledge these special days for them too. The day that I want most to celebrate someone's life has nothing to do with the calendar day that they were born. The fourth Thursday in November is not when I feel most thankful. The 14th of February is not when I celebrate my romantic relationship. To force these celebrations on universal dates disconnects them from the meaning they're supposed to celebrate. It's thoughtless. Celebrate personally meaningful markers. Ignore arbitrary calendar dates. When did this year really begin for you? Time is personal. Your year changes when your life changes. By Derek Sivers. A new day begins when I wake up, not at midnight. Midnight means nothing to me. It's not a turning point. Nothing changes at that moment. A new year begins when there's a memorable change in my life, not January 1st. Nothing changes on January 1st. I can understand using moments like midnight and January 1st as coordinators, so cultures and computers can agree on how to reference time. But shouldn't our personal markers and celebrations happen at personally meaningful times? Your year really begins when you move to a new home, start school, quit a job, have a big breakup, have a baby, quit a bad habit, start a new project, or whatever else. Those are the real memorable turning points, where one day is very different than the day before. Those are the meaningful markers of time. Those are your real New Years. This isn't selfish. You know your friends and family well enough to acknowledge these special days for them too. The day that I want most to celebrate someone's life has nothing to do with the calendar day that they were born. The fourth Thursday in November is not when I feel most thankful. The 14th of February is not when I celebrate my romantic relationship. To force these celebrations on universal dates disconnects them from the meaning they're supposed to celebrate. It's thoughtless. Celebrate personally meaningful markers. Ignore arbitrary calendar dates. When did this year really begin for you? Time is personal. Your year changes when your life changes. By Derek Sivers. A new day begins when I wake up, not at midnight. Midnight means nothing to me. It's not a turning point. Nothing changes at that moment. A new year begins when there's a memorable change in my life, not January 1st. Nothing changes on January 1st. I can understand using moments like midnight and January 1st as coordinators, so cultures and computers can agree on how to reference time. But shouldn't our personal markers and celebrations happen at personally meaningful times? Your year really begins when you move to a new home, start school, quit a job, have a big breakup, have a baby, quit a bad habit, start a new project, or whatever else. Those are the real memorable turning points, where one day is very different than the day before. Those are the meaningful markers of time. Those are your real New Years. This isn't selfish. You know your friends and family well enough to acknowledge these special days for them too. The day that I want most to celebrate someone's life has nothing to do with the calendar day that they were born. The fourth Thursday in November is not when I feel most thankful. The 14th of February is not when I celebrate my romantic relationship. To force these celebrations on universal dates disconnects them from the meaning they're supposed to celebrate. It's thoughtless. Celebrate personally meaningful markers. Ignore arbitrary calendar dates. When did this year really begin for you?
Time is personal. Your year changes when your life changes. By Derek Sivers. A new day begins when I wake up, not at midnight. Midnight means nothing to me. It's not a turning point. Nothing changes at that moment. A new year begins when there's a memorable change in my life. Not January 1st, not changes on January. I can understand using moments like midnight at January 1st as coordinators, so cultures and computers can agree on how to reference time. But shouldn't our personal makers and celebrations happen at personally meaningful times? Your year really begins when you move to a new home, start school, quit a job, have a big break, have a baby, quit a bad habit, start a new project, or whatever else. Those are the real memorable turning points, where one day is very different than the day before. Those are the meaningful markers of time. Those are your real New Years. This isn't selfish. You know your friends and family well enough to acknowledge these special days for them, too. The day that I most want to celebrate someone's life has nothing to do with the calendar day that they were born. The fourth Thursday in November is not when I feel most thankful. The 15th of February is not when I celebrate my romantic relationship. To force these celebrations on universal days disconnect them from the meaning they are supposed to celebrate is thoughtless. To force these celebrations on universal days disconnects them from the meaning they are supposed to celebrate is thoughtful. Celebrate personally meaningful markers. Ignore arbitrary calendar days. When did this year really begins for you?
Hi, I'm Derek Sivers, and this is Time is Personal. Your year changes when your life changes. A new day begins when I wake up, not at midnight. Midnight means nothing to me. It's not a turning point. Nothing changes at that moment. A new year begins when there's a memorable change in my life. Not January 1st. Nothing changes on January 1st. I can understand using moments like midnight and January 1st as coordinates, so cultures and computers can agree on how to reference time. But shouldn't our personal markers and celebrations happen at personally meaningful times? Your year really begins when you move to a new home, start school, quit a job, have a big breakup, have a baby, quit a bad habit, start a new project, or whatever else. Those are the real memorable turning points, where one day is very different than the day before. Those are the meaningful markers of time. Those are your real New Year's. This isn't just selfish. You know your friends and family well enough to acknowledge these special days for them, too. The day that I most want to celebrate someone's life has nothing to do with the calendar day that they were born. The fourth Thursday in November is not when I feel most thankful. The 14th of February is not when I want to celebrate my romantic relationship. To force these celebrations on universal dates disconnects them from the meaning they're supposed to celebrate. It's thoughtless. Celebrate personally meaningful markers. Ignore arbitrary calendar dates. When did this year really begin for you? Go to sivers.org/MNY. Oh, and Happy New Year. Feels empty. Defined by family. By Henry H. Walker. The house feels empty. And I feel partial. As if part of me has been cut off. Our sons and their wives are vital to who I am. And they are no longer here. Gone back to the immediacy of their own workaday worlds. Of their own everyday worlds. Our grandchildren also gone back to the immediacy of home, of friends, of where on earth they staked the flag of their moments. Yet, just as in math, or language, or the spatial, or the heart, there is an abstract reality below and behind the concrete present. We are a family, bonded and knowing much of who we are, because we connect so surely to each other. I cannot ever appreciate my wife enough, for in the house, empty of children and grandchildren, I still hold a treasure, and she holds me. I feel a miracle of love, where each of us knows and appreciates the other, which in turn allows us to appreciate the worth of our own selves.
The worth of their own selves.
Year-long resolutions don't work. Here's how to make 12 micro-resolutions instead. By David G. Allen. If you've ever tried to make a New Year's resolution, chances are you didn't stick with it past February, much less the whole year. That used to be me too. Every year, I'd enthusiastically and optimistically commit to one or more lofty goals, only to feel like a failure when I didn't accomplish any of them by December 31st. Rather than give up on this perennial brand of self-improvement, I decided to change my approach. I stopped making year-long commitments and began making monthly micro-resolutions instead. A mini or micro-resolution is any behavior you commit to for 4 weeks. And even longer-term goals to, say, eat better or learn a new skill can be broken down into more achievable goals along the way. Before you can land on Mars, focus on landing on the moon. It's much easier to stay focused on and dedicated to a shorter goal, and 30 days is long enough to lay the foundation for a new, healthy habit. I've used a micro-resolution strategy for the past 2 years, and I'm more satisfied with the results than any previous year-long attempts. To create micro-resolutions, you can start by thinking of 12 bad habits or indulgences you'd like to cut back on or give up entirely. This is what I did last year for what I called my year of abstinence. My plan was to learn something about myself through self-denial, and it worked. I gave up alcohol, sweets, television, and 9 other things, but just for 1 month each. The mini resolutions were as positive as they were eye-opening. Another approach is to think about 12 habits you want to add to your life. This is what I've done for the past year, and what I've dubbed my year of sustenance. Each month, I added a healthy activity with the same goals of self-improvement and self-awareness, hoping sustenance would be less sacrificing and more enjoyable.
Less sacrificing and more enjoyable.
How to Be a Better Friend by Tara Parker Pope. Whether it's Mary and Rhoda, Woody and Buzz Lightyear, or the 20-somethings of Friends, Hollywood has long celebrated the power of friendship, and with good reason. A true friend gives support without judgment, comes through in a crisis, and knows just the right thing to say when it matters most. Friendships are an essential ingredient in a happy life. So it's time to give them the care and attention they deserve. Keep reading to learn why friendships matter, how to sustain them, and the simple steps you can take right now to be a better friend. The benefits of friendship. Family relationships often come with a dose of guilt and obligation. Friends, on the other hand, are the antidote to the burdens of daily life. Friends share the load. How powerful is friendship? Researchers at the University of Virginia wanted to find out whether friendship influences how we approach the challenges of daily life. In an unusual experiment, researchers stood at the base of a steep hill, a 26-degree incline, on the university campus, and asked 34 students as they walked by to help them in an experiment. Some students were by themselves, others were walking in pairs. Each student was given a backpack filled with weights equal to about 20% of their body weight. While the students may have had the impression that they were going to have to climb the hill, the researchers simply asked them to estimate how steep the climb would be. Notably, students standing alone perceived the hill slant as steeper and thought it would be harder to climb while carrying the weighted pack. But students who were standing next to a friend thought the hill looked easier to climb and gave lower estimates of its steepness. Interestingly, the longer the two friends had known each other, the less steep the hill appeared. 365-Day Challenges by Steve Pavlina. I'm considering a 365-day challenge for 2020. That might be a little crazy. Okay, a lot crazy, but could also create tons of extra ripples. I'm on the fence about doing this, but currently am leaning towards it. The challenge would be to publish a new blog post every day of 2020, so 365 posts for the year. A post could be text, audio, or video. If it's video, then I'll likely post it to YouTube as well. I wouldn't have to create content every day per se, just publish something new each day. So I could batch create sometimes, like record a few videos in a row. But most of the time, I prefer to publish right after I create. The most I've ever blogged in a year was probably 150 to 200 posts, and that was many years ago. I've done multiple 30-day blogging challenges, and of course, lots of other 30-day challenges too. In 2017, I did a 30-day video challenge while water fasting. I've also done some 365-day challenges before, like for daily exercise, twice. And Rochelle has done daily yoga for more than 2 years now without missing a day. She loves Yoga with Adrian workouts on YouTube. One nice benefit of completing a full 365-day challenge is that it serves as a powerful reference experience for life. I still remember my first 365-day exercise challenge from 1997, minimum 25 minutes of cardio per day, which I think was instrumental in eventually running the LA Marathon a few years later. It elevates your self-image about what you think is possible for you. A 365-day challenge can be pretty edgy, because if you miss a single day, it will probably feel like you failed. Who wants to experience that 6 months in? But that same edginess also nudges you to raise your standards and move beyond your comfort zone. Such a commitment once nudged me to go running at 2 a.m. in the rain while I had a cold, after a long day at a workshop followed by a long drive. I was dead tired, but still did it. It was physically hard, but spiritually powerful. I wasn't going to miss a day halfway through the year. I still remember that run 22 plus years later because of what it meant to me at the time. And now I have the gift of knowing that I'm capable of exercising every day for a year without making excuses, because I've done it twice before. Let's do it. I wrote the part above yesterday. Now, on the morning of the 26th, as I'm getting ready to post this, I also feel ready to say yes to it. So yeah, I'll do it. Simply sharing this idea with others when I felt 60 to 70% ready helped me process how I felt about it. That resulted in extra encouragement from friends, along with several other people stepping up and saying they're ready to take on similar challenges for 2020. So this isn't just about me or my blog. It's already creating ripples well beyond, and 2020 hasn't even started yet. Maybe posting this to my blog as well will encourage other people to join in, or at least to consider stepping outside their comfort zones for 2020.